American daylight savings time means that we are now an extra hour out of sync. So as Jeff knows, I luckily I looked at my phone as I was heading to go to the beach to swim and went, that's weird that Sean's sending the StreamYard link so early. And then I went, wait a minute.
So for those of you joining us the first time, this is the 12-Cent Treehouse, where we talk about working in comics, TV, and film. And there's some feedback coming from someplace. And Steve Jones just joined us from New Zealand, where he lives. And we are all jealous of him because of that. I'm Sean McLaughlin. I was a producer writer on things like Justice League, Batman Beyond, Pinky and the Brain, and wrote some comic books. And I'm here with Jeff Johnson.
Don't do that.
Wow, that sounds like a special effect. Uh-oh.
It still does. As you can tell,
because we have two Jeff cameras up.
I think that's better.
We're like the My Pillow guy.
Steve, you want to introduce yourself? You're Stephen B. Jones, also known as Steve Jones, and I guess we don't say Jeeves anymore, do we?
I mean, some people do. God bless them. I'm Stephen B. Jones. I drew some comics with Jeff and Sean in the 90s before getting into animation. My second job in animation was working with this guy, Sean, on Batman the Animated Series, The New Adventures, Superman the Animated Series, and Batman Beyond. And I also worked with him on Justice League Unlimited. And I also worked with Jeff on Justice League Unlimited.
That was a great show.
Yeah. I've mostly worked...
Talk about who... Oh, it's okay. Go on, Steve. Sorry.
No, look, we only have an hour for the show. We can't do my whole resume.
Right. Yeah, I think so. That's Steve Jones. He's a comic book animation professional. I'm Jeff Johnson. I've done a lot of stuff. And I think the topic for today is going to be mistakes. Things that you shouldn't do, but probably will. So we're just going to share some of our own stories and then maybe give a little bit of advice and then see if we can't learn from our mistakes.
Yes. And for those of you who don't know, we all at conventions and stuff have looked at portfolios, continue to look at portfolios. I work part-time as a script analyst. So I read between 5 and 10 scripts every week. And I see what a lot of people coming in the industry are putting out there. Biggest mistake I made, I'll start with that, was being too afraid and not getting into the industry sooner because I was nervous about trying something different. And when I was teaching, what I always told my college students was, if you don't go, somebody else is going to go. So you might as well go and do it. And when you're young, that's the time to do it because you don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have a dog with huge vet bills. So don't waste your life. Go soon. Take a risk. That's my beginning. Who wants to go next?
Yeah, I think that's really great advice, because if you wait till you're ready or until you're older, it just gets harder and harder because you have more responsibilities, you have more things. One of the things about breaking in that seems to be pretty universal is how much work it takes and how much you have to dedicate everything to it. And there's just no room for a life of any other kind.
Yep. If you want to be in the arts, you'll probably see people you went to high school with driving much better cars than you are.
Yeah.
Steve, what about you? Sure. Anything
really well, I think my beautiful German pencil sharpener, by the way, gives me great joy.
Herr Sharpener! Herr Sharpener!
Well, yeah, it's elektrische Spitze. Electric pencil sharpener. Anyway, I think along with what Sean is saying, I always interpret that like my first day of college acting class, my working actor college professor, I think best advice was just dare to suck, along
Yep.
with what. And so, and that, there's a strange mixture, right? Like, okay, you need to actually get really good to be able to get work. So you need to be constantly trying to push yourself to get better, but you will also be constantly frustrated to see people that you don't think are very good, and sometimes people that you might even be better than, doing better than you and having a great career. And so it's sort of that strange mixture of like, they're not letting the fact that they suck stop them from trying. It's kind of that, maybe that Dunning-Kruger effect or whatever. It's like sometimes people don't even realize how bad they are. But then the benefit that they might have is that lack of self-awareness makes them like, well, I'm just going to jump in and try,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if you are cursed with the intelligence and awareness to have a very truly realistic sense of how good you are, you're going to have to psych yourself up that much more to keep trying, even when you're still sucking, because there is no way to get better than to just suck and keep trying to do keep writing, keep drawing, keep doing exactly, and then try to realistically assess what your skill, where you're doing well and where you're not doing well, and keep working on that stuff. But it can be tough you kind of have to balance that self-delusion with a realistic assessment of what you need to work on and improve.
And you don't want to get bitter and just start saying the whole world's stupid because they don't recognize my greatness. Well, that happened to a lot of people I knew. Steve and I both started out as actors, went to college for acting. Jeff, what about you? You guys were doing pretty good from a pretty young age.
Well, we were driven. I think that was partly true. And then I think that it was a different world. Breaking in was different back in the 90s and the late 80s.
I think Jeff and I have talked that, on the show and before, right? The benefit of he and I meeting each other was that I have no doubt that Jeff would have become a comic book artist even if he'd never met me. But me meeting him, on the one hand, it was like a reality check where I was like, oh, geez, this kid is so much farther ahead than I am in terms of where I need to be. And I was able to realistically see that enough at 16 to be like, so on the one hand, that it drove me into inking because I'm like, well, all right, let me try to more realistically moderate my expectations. But I think the good thing about it is that having a buddy, having someone else with a shared goal, then I don't think we ever did this intentionally, but it was, in a way, it made us hold to our goals. It was like, then it became like, well, no matter what, we're going to do this, right? And then you had someone to like bounce stuff off of, work together, keep trying to get better and improve it. So I do think that people talk so much about networking, and I think a really, really important thing that people miss about networking is that it's really, really important to just cast your net laterally, that you need to become as friends with as many other people that are aspiring to do the same thing as you as possible, and like truly look for good friends and partners in that thing. And then it sort of becomes like, then when somebody is the first person to kind of like get across to that next stage, then hopefully they can help you and maybe it's you and you help the people that you're with. Like, you need to sort of try to network up and learn to meet people, but I think it's actually way more important to network out and build a group of people that you're going to kind of like inspire, learn from, and kind of come up together,
Yeah, I used to tell students that too. Look to your left, look to your right. That's your network. So, make your decisions now. Jeff, I don't think I know how you got your first gig. Steve, you started working for Jeff, right?
I was, when I got back from the Army, I was doing the reserve thing. So I did not they cut my GI Bill, the 80s. Thanks, Reagan, Bush, all those guys. So I couldn't go full time to school. So I wound up just working for a living and trying to break into comics on my own during the just just during the day or night or whenever I could squeeze it in, and I would go to every show possible, every comic book show. And I made a friend of Fabian Nicieza when he was still in marketing at Marvel. And he would send me scripts and give me advice and really help me along. So going back to the point you guys are saying about your network, I think it's impossible to do anything like this totally alone. Like, you need a support group and you need friends and connections. And I think that, so, because you can't know what's up, right? Like, there's so many things apart from drawing. There's the business side, there's working with people, there's the connections about getting the job. So you really have to have an excellent circle around you.
Well, I think something that Jeff did, I think it reminds me of like when I've seen people that are like professional athletes or whatever, where they, like bodybuilders, where it's like, look, I'm planning all my meals for the week. You know what I mean? Like I'm skipping going out for beer and nachos with friends. Like, you kind of become about that goal. And something that Jeff brought, like Jeff purposely took the minimum amount of hours that he could working at his day job to leave him, and then lived on like the lowest budget he could afford and didn't give himself any extras. There was a period where Jeff and I were eating just the one meal all you could eat at Wendy's for a while,
Yeah.
But that was so that Jeff had the maximum amount of hours every day and every week to be able to draw comics. And sometimes, the toughest thing was before Jeff got work at Marvel, or even in the transition, when it's like, oh, I've got a deadline for this independent comic and I want to do this job and I need to do this job. And I also have to maintain my day job, And so Jeff turned down many a promotion at the day job because he wanted to stay focused on his actual goal, which is doing this.
Drawing comics, yeah. And I did some free stuff, some stuff that was supposed to pay that didn't pay. We've all done that. And then I got very lucky when Fabian became an editor. He gave me a tryout for Wonder Man. And then I got it.
But that's a good point too, Jeff, kind of like to what we were saying about networking, which is that in a way, we were building a lateral network, but then you were going to shows repeatedly, so that you were able to kind of build a connection with Fabian, who was a young, new editor at that point too. So he was open to meeting new talent, because at that point, as a young, new editor in the late 80s, John Byrne and George Perez weren't going to be they wouldn't be responding to Fabian's phone calls if he tried to hire them to work on a comic at Marvel. He needed to build relationships with new talent, And
I'm charming.
Sure.
Well, that goes without saying. What about where was I going? I just spaced it. What about showing your books to people at conventions? Did you do that a lot?
That was huge back then. I guess we still look at stuff, but is that as big of a part of trying to get work now as it used to be?
I used to do it every year at San Diego and WonderCon when it was Oakland. Warner's would send me up there every year to try and find new people, because we're always short people.
Right.
I don't know if they're doing it now, but did you guys take your stuff out to books, to conventions, to show to people?
Definitely. That's how Jeff, I don't know if we've lost Jeff temporarily, but I know how Jeff got to know Fabian at all these shows was, in the lines to try to show talent to editors. And I definitely did too. Like, in my path of, once I graduated from college and realized that at the age of 21, I could not see myself moving to New York or LA and trying to pursue acting, since I had the emotional maturity of a walnut at that point. I thought, like, well, hey, my friend Jeff is drawing comics. He could use some help with backgrounds to help meet his deadlines, and then this will allow me to put some samples together. And so then once I had samples, then I started showing them to every editor that I could, you could. And at least back then, I think but they would usually schedule some portfolio time that DC or Marvel or different people, Dark Horse,
Yeah. If it makes you feel any better, I couldn't cross the street by myself when I was 21. So
I can't hear you, Sean.
Jeff, can you hear me?
I can't hear you, Sean. Hey, can you send Scott
Hello?
the email again?
Sure.
It's okay. All right. Maybe
Can you-
I'll
can you
try
hear-
to refresh.
Can you hear Jeff?
Say again.
All right. Steve is having trouble hearing us.
Right.
So how was your experience of having people look at your books?
Oh, hang on 1 second. My experience was heartbreaking. Hang on. We're doing this.
And why?
I hate this thing. Oh, God damn it.
We're getting a lot of feedback and stuff. I can talk for a minute what it's like looking at portfolios, because I used to do it at San Diego and at Oakland. And so I got Steve, can you hear me? Oh, well, here we are. So I used to look at portfolios all the
Oh,
time.
now I
They'd
can't.
send me
What the
out-
hell?
They'd send me out twice a year. I'm vamping while the other
This is a
guys
pain.
figure out
Technical difficulties.
And
Sean,
I
can you hear me
wanted to
now?
look at it- Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Bluetooth.
Okay, Jeff's talking about Bluetooth now.
Should be better.
Bluetooth.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Steve?
I can.
You've got
Okay,
reverb
great.
though.
Sean, can you hear me?
Yes, you've got reverb though.
Okay, great.
So I look at hundreds of portfolios every year, and the thing that I would see is that people were doing convention sketch art. They would draw a really nice thing that might be a cover or a pinup of a character, but there'd be no continuity in there, and there'd be, for animation, there'd be no
All right.
sign that they could draw
I've
any
switched.
other way.
I've
than
switched
the
my
way.
mic.
All right. Can you hear us, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good. That was very
So-
ugly.
So right. So Sean was looking at stuff, but he wasn't seeing that people could do any storytelling or anything that animated at all. It was just pretty pictures.
Yeah, they just show you. It just show you
Yeah,
convention
well, I mean,
sketch art.
when I've done the preview or the portfolio reviews, the thing that I always try to do was either give someone, like, if I really felt they were ready for an informative review, I would be like, okay, do you want the good one or like the long one? And so if they just wanted to hear like they were doing great, then I would just tell them they were doing great, because drawing comics is hard. But then if someone felt like they were close and really needed some advice, then I'd spend some time and go over every page and give them books to read and suggestions and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean that was it was always like, have you thought about doing this? There was one guy, I don't know if you guys remember this. It was when we were in the new office, and one guy got recommended to me by a mutual friend of all of ours, and came in and
He's dead
showed
now.
me his.
Actually, probably it's a horrible joke because he probably is.
Well, Scott's here. Scott's here to make up for Jeff not being here. Jeff
Lost track of time.
Jeff is the blank screen. Well, it's daylight savings time.
I guess
we've
that
lost
messed
that
most
here.
of us up. I was also in the middle of drawing a page, so I was just drawing.
So
How dare
we
you
were
enjoy
talking
your
about-
job?
I know.
We were talking about stuff we did when we went to break in, like in the early days, what kind of mistakes people have made and things like that. You
Threats,
have any-
accusations.
What is up with
Blackmail.
my camera.
No, that's after I got my job.
There we go.
There he is.
Yay!
That was a nightmare.
I'm not the last one.
Technically you are. And I still can't hear Sean. So we were doing great. So I think what's funny about this doing this show is if we're not all, if anyone comes in afterwards, it messes everything up.
Is that what we
and-
think?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Mine's worked fine.
Yeah, but you can't hear Sean, and we were doing great before you guys got here.
And I can't hear. I can't hear Sean either.
I think
Yeah,
we're all
I don't
blaming
know
me.
what. Sean, yeah,
I'm not blaming you, Scott. But Jeff's got a lot of blame right now, and he's trying to disperse it, and that's okay. Let him do what he
Yeah.
needs to do.
well, thanks for showing
We're all
up when you
here
guys
for
did.
you. We're
So
all
hey,
here for
Sean,
you, Jeff.
I did
all
show
here
up on
for
time.
leave and come back.
Wait, no, I can hear Sean. Sean,
Okay, but I
say
can't-
something.
Yes.
It's so irritating.
Jeff, can you not hear Sean? Scott, can you
Not
hear
at all.
Sean?
I can hear all three of you.
All right, so
All right,
Jeff, maybe
well-
you try refreshing.
I did already, Steve. Hang on a second.
Do you like
Good
drawing
change.
comics and cartoons? Drink Coke. There you go.
We're
Vanilla
gonna
Coke from
change-
New Zealand contains no corn syrup but pure sugar. Drink Coke. All right. Maybe we get a
we're gonna
sponsorship.
rename this. We're gonna rename this technical difficulties.
There you go.
So which was my punk band's name.
I like how Jeff's so angry at us. We're just trying to do the show, buddy.
So, what were the things that were covered as far as breaking in mistakes?
Not creating a network, waiting too long, trying to get experience outside, not doing the business work at the beginning to try and figure stuff out. But that was pretty much where we were, and then we started
And
having.
And Sean
technical
talking about people not actually doing storytelling, or just drawing pretty pictures of Spider-Man instead of the real thing.
Yeah. There's a bunch of us that learn a whole lot on the job.
All right.
Jeff, can you hear me?
Yeah, I cannot get to Sean. I can't get to hear him. It's driving me
All right,
crazy.
I'll go back. I'll go and come back now.
So I'm just gonna draw and put stuff up.
let Scott tell his.
You guys can. Oh, all right. I'm
Scott,
assuming
Scott, tell your story.
My story.
Yeah.
So I was not nearly aware of the business side of it as much as I should have. What I did have from the Kubert School was a decent understanding of how to make it through an interview. And then just the idea of, if you do, wind up at the right place, right time, sort of the right skills are bare enough that you can get your first job from somebody, move heaven and earth, whatever you need to do, call in friends or whatever it is to make sure that you make that deadline and you do the job as best as possible, that kind of stuff. Whether you think you could even do this another time or anything else going on, you have to put your best foot forward with the actual product that you're trying to give them. That is really what you're going to be judged on, as far as I remember all about it. So if you turned in a mediocre to bad job, and especially then, even if it was late, all of those things would count against you. So especially in those early jobs, it was very, very important to, once you got your foot maybe or toe in the door, to not mess that up, to keep talking to everybody as much as you can, but also make the work as absolutely best as you can within the parameters of the time frame. I just saw the video this afternoon that was joking almost about the same thing about employees and whatnot anywhere, that most of the younger employees, according to this video, the kids aren't nice. They don't say thank you. They don't show up on time. They don't try to network and try to get to know everybody that they might be working with, that kind of thing. There's a lot of not work or not fully invested, I think, in what the guy was talking about for what they do as a mistake. So really, supposedly anybody who shows up these days, doesn't call in sick, comes on time, comes in with an idea, whatever it is, you're almost ahead of the game there.
Yeah, that's true. Can you hear me, Jeff?
I can. Thank you.
Woohoo!
Yay!
So what did Scott, did you talk anything about, was there anything you would do different or any mistakes you made that you would try not to make?
Besides meeting me and Jeff.
I'd already broken in by the time I met you two scoundrels.
Mhm.
Anything else I'd do different? I guess, in hindsight, I wish I would have taken drawing and stuff like that more seriously back in high school, even before high school. I was drawing, and I had some bare bones, sort of very simplistic anatomy books that were given to me, but they weren't of the caliber that I learned at the Kubert School and the stuff I got since then. So
How
I
dare
wish
you enjoy your childhood.
but I was serious about other things. I was playing guitar and I was learning scales and I was learning songs and all sorts of stuff. So I was doodling with the comic books, but it felt like it was never going to happen. Like it couldn't happen. It was too far away. New York City was a magical, land of Oz kind of thing. I didn't know that I was ever going to get there.
Yeah. I was telling Megan this morning that there was somebody on YouTube put up a video from the F train, which was the train I took all the time when I lived in New York, and I was trying to explain how romantic and far away the idea of living in New York was, even though I was like 400 miles away from New York. You could practically see it, but it just seemed impossible. And it was that you'd get there and there'd be like angels singing all the time and magic stuff happening.
I heard the Superman theme. The first time I came out of the tunnel or the train or whatever it was, and I stepped out and everything else, I started hearing Superman music and all that stuff. The first time I got on a New York rooftop, oh my God.
Oh yeah, that
just
was
having
magical.
Tons of vision, seeing Daredevil run by, Spider-Man swing by, all that stuff was just, my head was exploding.
I think my first trip to New York, I think I flew into Newark, took the bus from Newark into the Port Authority, and then you just kind of walk out of the Port Authority, and that was my thought. I definitely went like, oh, now I understand like how you would come up with the concept of superheroes and people flying and jumping and swinging around, because it's like if you grow up in the California suburbs, it's a little bit like, how would this web slinging actually work?
Right.
And now you're like, oh, this all makes sense.
Oh yeah.
The first time I was there, my roommate from college had moved down there and moved down with him. He met me at Grand Central, and he'd been there for probably like 6 months before. And we walked out of Grand Central and we're talking. He went, by the way, that's the Empire State Building. And I looked up and he went, wham! You never look up at a building in New York. What the fuck's wrong with you?
I made that mistake a lot because I wanted to see stuff.
Right.
Oh, that was so hard to always not do. I'm sure I broke it a couple different times. So it was like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it.
Yeah. I remember. I was told that rule. I never followed it.
Luckily, I mean, that was before cell phones and, like before you couldn't walk around just with your map, like then you're just, I think my cousin lived in Hell's Kitchen, and I remember like I was walking up from the Port Authority to Hell's Kitchen, and then I was supposed to I was trying to get a cab to Marvel, I think, or something, or I was trying to, and no one had explained to me the light on, light off thing with the cabs. And so cabs that had people in them kept driving by, and I kept putting my hand out, and then when they would just drive by, each one was just destroying my confidence and making me feel like more and more of a rube, of a country yokel. And it was so funny because I felt like as my confidence was shrinking, I suddenly became aware there in Hell's Kitchen in the early 90s, which was not as nice as it is now, that it suddenly felt like everyone was becoming aware of my presence, sort of like, a bunch of animals in the forest kind of going like, what's this little bunny rabbit? Like,
right.
And then
invasion of the body snatchers.
Yeah.
And so then finally I just realized, I'm like, all right, I have a general sense of where I'm supposed to go. So I just like turned around and I just started walking. And then I started picking up pretty quickly that everyone's vibe was like this super intense, like they really knew where they're going. So I'm like, all right, just pretend. I just know for now I'm going to this corner. So I'm going to just walk like straight on, like really intense. Like, I'm like, all right, I'm an actor. Like, all right, you know where you're going. You know what you're doing. And then then I suddenly became invisible, just like everyone else. It's like, oh, okay. Just act like you have a purpose.
Right.
When we started, that the industry was in New York. And if you wanted to work, being in New York or in the area was a huge bonus to you. I mean, you had to be, I think, somebody on the level of Byrne at that time to really get a lot of work and not live right around New York.
Yeah, you had to be worth all the trouble of FedEx and all the other things going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had to be pretty
mean-
well established and a bigger player.
Yeah, it wasn't until the mid '90s it really broke out of that. I mean, there were people in
Yeah.
California. Jack was in California and things like that, but none of us were Jack Kirby.
Yeah, I left the East Coast around 93. I got to California about 94. So that's when I felt confident enough, which was a little bit of a, sort of a mistake there. I felt confident enough that I would, most of the work was FedEx or whatever at that time. So it wasn't that big of a deal to step that far away.
Yeah.
Of course, it was only a couple years after that we had our little mini implosions and different things going on with the industry.
Yeah,
Perfectly timed.
We had to squeeze into that window.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got to New York. So we're gonna go back to I'm gonna go back to one of the mistakes that you make when you first get to New York. Though I don't know if this is true or not, or you don't really have to go. I mean, it's a different world. But when you get off at the train at Penn Station, don't just get into any figure out where you're going and then know what's going on, because you will get into a cab, at least back in the 90s, and they will drive you around
Oh
for
yeah.
a while until they and it's a fun game they play with tourists.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, they'll double the route easy.
Oh yeah.
Didn't we have a friend, and I'm not naming their name, that was essentially robbed blind their first trip to New York, like in the Port Authority or something like that? Like someone just came and took their, oh, let me take your bags for you, but then they just took their bags.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have heard of that happening, but the other story, the reason I even bring it up is because they got into a cab outside Penn Station, and we were all going to go to the Pennsylvania Hotel, which is just across the street. So he got into a cab, and that cab driver drove him all over and then brought him back to the street. So all the stories you hear about them messing with tourists and taking it, those are all true.
Yeah. So what about it with it now being so decentralized? I mean, the only real centralization, if you want to go talk to somebody or meet an editor or anything, is going to a con of a decent size, right?
It seems that way. Small, like back in when we were breaking in, well, we didn't have the internet, so I think it was beneficial for the companies to send representatives to various shows and look for talent and get to know people and get feedback in person, gather intelligence in person. Now with the internet, there is no more. They don't send editors. Right. They don't send representatives. They barely have a presence at the smaller shows at all. And so I think it's difficult to make that kind of personal connection. But you can email, you can post your stuff online, but I think going back to what you were saying, Sean, the best thing you can do is always do your own thing and try and make that as successful and popular as possible. And then someone who wants to use you to make money will find you.
Yeah, I think it was before we went on, I was talking about when I first started, I spent way too much time trying to write to the market instead of writing what I wanted. And you're neither artistically satisfied nor do you usually wind up being financially satisfied really that way. But there are certain things I can't. There are a couple shows I wrote on, which I was really grateful for. I got the work from some really good friends, and they trusted me. And I hadn't done a lot of script. There were a couple of those shows that I worked on that right now I wouldn't take it, because I just don't have the capacity to start thinking that much about writing something that's not from me. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with writing a script, and the Ernest Hemingway story about how you write for Hollywood is that you write it, and then you drive to the California-Nevada border, you throw it over the border, they throw a bag of money, you get in your car and you go back to New York. I'm fine with that idea now, but at least
that's a great system
to begin with. Yeah, if you're Ernest Hemingway, it's probably easier.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, drawing, luckily for me, I know that some people don't like superhero comics, but that's always what I wanted to draw. So I was always drawing. So the market and what I wanted to draw always kind of lined up. So that was great when I was younger. But it changes as you get.
Well, that's good advice in either way, right? Like Jeff wasn't selling out. He genuinely what, he loved Marvel and DC comics as a kid, and his goal was to draw Marvel and DC comics, and especially when we were kids in the 70s and 80s, like the self-published creator-owned version of, like, that was such a small niche at that point that it was almost not even something that you thought was achievable or not achievable.
Yeah, it was like half a Steranko book and 2 Jack Katz First Kingdom collections.
I love the Jack Katz stuff. I love that stuff when I was a kid. Yeah.
But so I think, like, say, we were having just broke into comics when suddenly, like, Image happened, and suddenly there was a far more mainstream version of being able to own and do your own work. But to what Sean's saying, or it's like, only try to break into film, TV, comics, animation or whatever, if that's really what you want. Like, if you know that you really just want to only be satisfying your own voice and not be doing work for hire work, then you may as well just do a version of what Jeff did, in the, get a day job that's like the least amount of hours that you can find to sustain yourself. And that's, I mean, that was maybe possible in the late 80s and early 90s in a way. Now,
right?
The cost of living crisis is so intense all around the whole world. Like, almost everyone's got to work multiple jobs just to pay any bills. But assuming you could find a way to do that, maybe it's living with a bunch of roommates or still staying with. But if you're not looking, if you don't want to try to figure out, like, oh, well, hey, I want to write on The Pit, or I want to, write Superman, or I want to draw Batman, or draw, Bugs Bunny or something like that. Like, you may as well just focus from the very beginning on just trying to develop your own style, your own sense, and what you want to do, if you're not interested in trying to do work for hire stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would still do work for hire, but there's certain kinds of work for hire I wouldn't take just for the money anymore. I just thought about this while you were talking, Steve, but I had an acting teacher when I was at undergrad who would say, when you get your headshots done, they have to look like you, but it should be the blandest possible version of you, so that the casting director can see what they want to see in it. And
that's interesting.
I was 10 years in the business before I realized that was like the worst advice you could possibly give somebody, because they're going through thousands and thousands. When I cast Twilight, available on YouTube March 20th, I saw like 500 pictures of people. Like, you don't, you have to stand out in that, and the only way you're going to stand out is by being the honest you.
Yeah, I do think that one of the things that any artist has to offer, the most valuable thing they have to offer, is a unique perspective and a unique look. It's trying to, which is funny for me saying that, because when I started off, I was definitely aping a lot of Jim Lee and a lot of Kevin McGuire. Like, I was definitely inspired by those guys in trying to do what they were doing in a way. But from an honest place of it, like, appreciation, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I see if I can't get something like this.
Yeah, because when you say that, when I think about your stuff, especially your early stuff, it seems to me from what you're saying that you would look at and like, oh, I like the way he did that feathering there, I'm going to do that. So it's still Jeff drawing like Jeff, but increasing the feathering because of what you saw someplace else.
When I had come from such a, I had friends. I was using models all the time. I was drawing from life all the time. So the idea, like, and I definitely caught, I mean, I've stolen a Dave Johnson panel numerous times. And now whenever I do it, I'll call him. Yeah, I stole it again. I stole that same panel. But I do think that it's, your influences aside, whatever you need, like, whatever makes your life interesting or your perspective interesting, that has to be on the page. Otherwise, no one's going to give you $1 for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you'll just wind up being like everybody else, and you'll just disappear after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. we all start off emulating our heroes to some degree or another. Or I even at the beginning when I was first getting hired to make sure I was breaking in and doing what was needed for the jobs, I was emulating the Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld line work in there for a while for the first jobs because I knew it's like I need to figure out, to get a real rhythm with my storytelling. I have to make sure my drawing of anatomy and all these other things gets up to snuff because certain things were still kind of lacking as I was going along. So I was learning on the job. But the sooner you find your own voice and how things get their own rhythm and everything, the better. And no matter what your influences are, and sometimes no matter even like how specific you may shoot for something. We had some other guys that were passing by and in the studio before, and one of them was really strong about like, oh, you should do this and this. You should mix, this person to do this stuff and then that person do that stuff. And you can, and I've known some people that have done that over time, but really it boils down to the same thing that, Sienkiewicz and all those other guys went through is that, yeah, you may start off with really influenced by who your artistic heroes were, but we only got the real Bill Sienkiewicz is when all of a sudden he cut loose with his own thing, which in some ways you could think of as that he just imbibed everything and let all of his art come out of him, which is so freewheeling now as compared to what it was when he first broke in. It has to come through you. It has to be your voice. It has to come through your hands. You can plan and plan and plan and say, I'm going to be the best version of Jack Kirby and Neil Adams or blah, 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 on and on and on, or whatever, whoever the flavor of the month is that you get so excited about. But if it doesn't come out of your hand, it doesn't matter. It's not going to happen.
Yep. I used to tell students, so who, as we're talking about comic books to use an example, who do you like? Oh, I really like Neil Adams. Okay. Who did Neil Adams like? Yeah. And then who did that person like?
Yeah.
And go back and learn that. And I used to do a diagram in writing class where I'd tell them when I was a little kid, I really loved the Superman TV show. It was everything. And then I can take that and drew a tree and take it back to why I got interested in New York WPA theater in the 30s. And it's all from following lines like that. And it just gives you a wider perspective.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, when you're making your own stuff, so the mistake I think is not branching out the first chance. I mean, is not branching out for too long. I mean, eventually you should always branch out, but like taking the training wheels off before you're ready, I think is probably a good thing to do. That way you can start making those mistakes and start developing your own personal styles sooner than later.
Yeah, if you don't suck, you're never going to get good.
Yeah, I mean, as George was saying earlier, you got to dare to suck.
Yep.
Easier said than done, or for some of us it comes naturally. But it I think too it's very natural for people to sort of look at and study and emulate their heroes because you're just sort of trying to figure out how to do the job.
Sure.
like definitely like. I should have had Jeff and Scott pose for more up the nose shots, but looking at how Gil Kane drew that low angle thing, it helped give me the shorthand on like, how do you envision the head when it's tilting that way? Or I know like John Romita Jr. is who helped me just kind of do a 3/4 down shot of a head. It's like, oh, okay. Like there's a lot more back of the skull in the back of the skull than I've been looking at, and not always as easy when you're looking at friends or different people that have hair and you're trying to imagine, like God bless Alex Ross, who was just kitting out his friends in full costumes to paint them.
I know.
It's
that was revolutionary. That was really great.
Yep.
It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, how would someone look as Green Lantern? Well, let's put together an entire Green Lantern costume and then pose them and light them. It's like that.
But that can become limiting too. Like, I think for Alex Ross, it has become limiting, but yeah, it's awesome.
Well, it's most of the entire history of art is having people pose, for stuff. So certainly it sure would have been fun to be one of the mid-century advertising illustrators like McGinnis or Al Parker or Robert Fawcett or any of those guys, or where it's like, oh, we're doing this like really romantic shot between a man and a woman for good housekeeping, and then just bringing in a handsome dude and beautiful
Yeah.
woman, and they're just going to
Yeah.
kind of canoodle on the couch, and you're going to take pictures of that and then turn it into a beautiful painting, you know?
And then
That's-
you sell the rest. You sell the rest to Bunny Yeager.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
there's a
Exactly.
secondary market there somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm sad to have missed that era. I think that would have been
Yeah.
a fun era to have been a part of.
Well, you know, you could take certain pictures and get put in jail. That part was probably a downer.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, did you guys go back and look at people older? I mean, I know we were all about the same age and looking at the same stuff, but did you? I mean, for me, when those 100 pagers start coming out, it was like, oh, I know I need to find out more about this stuff. Mark Meskin to me was like,
Yeah. When I discovered Gil Kane, I loved Gil Kane, and then looked at old Lou Fine stuff on the Black Condor, which is amazing. And it's got that same sort of like lankiness to it, you know, the sinewy lankiness to it.
Yep.
And then once you see that guy, you're like, oh, this is a different kind of, and then you find old school. One of the great things about the Frazetta books when I was a kid is like they had some of his old comic book stuff in them, and you could see you're like, oh, look at the brushwork is so elegant and everything is so amazing. It's and going back in time, I always find it to be super fascinating. Like old Kniff stuff, when you see those, how he inked a page and how he made these images, because I think those guys are looking at different stuff than we see now. We don't get, we weren't getting Hal Foster or Alex Raymond in the newspaper every week. Like we weren't being exposed to it.
well,
Not only that, but
were-
they had Life
I mean,
magazine or all those other magazines at the time, or National Geographic or whatever else that they would have. That it's so hard. I mean, you can find stuff on the internet, but not to have that regular flow of stuff that'd be like coming to your house or to your library or something.
new stuff coming in all the time,
Yeah.
just new stuff, Life every week. Kniff used photo models quite a bit too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was, I think a couple weeks ago I talked about, I've been reading Frank Robbins' Johnny Hazard from 1945, and it's
Wow.
clearly, influenced by Sickles and Kniff, but then it's starting to turn into his own thing. Literally, like in August of 45, you start to see that more angular come in there. So they were looking at different stuff, and also those guys were kind of creating the form. I mean,
Yeah.
They were.
Foster, the first adventure strip was 1929, so
And the Will
Yep.
Eisner stuff was definitely playing with what you could do on a page in a way that I still don't get. I still can't do.
Sometimes his storytelling was so idiosyncratic to the stories that he was trying to tell. It's kind of hard sometimes to put those tricks or different things that he was using in there into anything that we were doing for Marvel, DC, or anything superhero. Even some of the different stuff that I've done with horror, whatnot. I haven't found it's even like inviting for me to be like, oh, there's this water in this panel. Like there's water coming through the roof or whatever. He would have had the water like, become part of the panel gutter and lead you all the way through and do all these crazy things going on. But he would be in control of the story for all of that. So he could use it for a reason and make it work or whatever it was supposed to do. Whereas most of the time, we're given a script and we can go along with some things or infer or change some things, this and that. But something that strong visually on a page would kind of need to be there for a reason now,
Yeah.
in my mind.
I think you need to have, if you're writing, you have to write your visuals. You have to plan that kind of thing. I remember we were all in the studio and Shannon Wheeler was with us for a while. And I watched him lay out a page of Too Much Coffee Man. And he did very much that same thing with like a tree and the roots and told the story. And I was struck by how trapped I had become in the boxes. I'm like, oh, there's this whole other thing you can do with the page that I'm not even thinking about. So that's another good reason. It's another good thing to have people around to shake you up a little bit.
yeah,
Absolutely.
especially people like that, not just no offense, Jeff and Steve, but not just people you grew up with, but
No.
Hey,
having a good crew, that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, but always
And
keeping your, influences as varied as possible. Either just looking around places. Or Jeff and I have talked about this too, and I'm sure that Steve knows this full well right now. The traveling often changes your perspective of looking at things. When you've gone to other countries, other places, other things going on, all of that stuff, to me, it goes in through your eyes and it gets embedded in your little computer brain kind of thing. So then, if I need to draw stuff from France now, sure, I can look at pictures and stuff of online, but I've been there and
Yeah.
I've walked the streets, and it
And
feels
get the
different,
feeling.
and the basis of your drawing to be completely different just by
Mhm.
having that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so when I've always wanted to draw, Spider-Man's always been my favorite, and I've always wanted to draw Spider-Man. And then I got the chance in the middle of my run on Wonder Man, and so um, I was able to go to New York and live there for a month, staying in a friend's little tiny apartment in Alphabet City, which it used to be a drug den. It was very sketchy place, but um, it was on First and House, and so I got to live in New York, and I
Oh,
got to wander
Jesus.
around. Oh yeah, it was bad. It was. I saw a lot of things that a little suburban boy wasn't ready to see.
I literally remember being on that street and walking down and sort of like lightly pushing heroin needles out of my
Oh,
way
yeah.
into the
I remember,
gutter.
so in the building,
Sorry.
there was the standard courtyard, right? And so you would come down to the end of the courtyard and you walk through a long tunnel to get to the street. And I remember coming into the corner, into the tunnel, I could see at the end was my neighbor, and he was doing a deal. And I could see, and like, I didn't want to startle him, so I made a lot of noise and coughed a lot, and then let him know I'm coming down the dark hallway. Please don't. I don't want to be involved in this, but I have to go outside.
Don't kill me.
Perfect.
But being in New York really changed the way. I mean, I finally understood that thing Jones was talking about. I was like, oh, you would swing from building to building. That would be
Yeah.
faster.
You could even conceivably leap.
Yeah.
And getting on those rooftops with the water towers and all that stuff up there, like, wow,
Oh, I love a water tower.
made it
When we
so
first got-
real.
Oh yeah, when you first get there and you're like, oh, they really are everywhere.
In a certain part of town.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain what it's like to get there when you're 20 or 21 or 22. And
Yeah.
just like it's movies are real.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I mean, so the mistake I think a lot of artists don't do is, or younger artists seems to be making, because I've taught a lot of classes, and it seems like they're very photo heavy reference, right? A lot of tracing and a lot of like compiling pictures together and doing collages and building a picture in that way in Photoshop. And I think there's a value in that for sure, but like nothing beats just drawing from your own experience. Nothing beats being able to. I started doing some sword fencing recently, and because I'm pretty okay with the katana, but I've never fenced. I've never done with the saber or anything, and so it's an entirely different grip, different stance, and so my character does not. He's going to move differently, with a different weapon, and now I get that a little bit more.
Your character in what book?
And Rogue's Kingdom, which I just sent out the digital copy of issue 2.
Available from Rex
What-
Comics.
What does that
Rex
book
Tales.
look like, Jeff?
Oh my God, I think I might have one right here.
I
This guy-
heard mine was on the way, signed by the creators.
It will be.
I just got an email thanking me for my patience.
Yes.
There you go. No, but that's super
Rogues
cool
issue
that you
1.
actually went through and you found a class on fencing, and one of your main characters, has that kind of sword experience, and he's going to be doing some of that sort of stuff. So that's really cool.
And now if I can just find someone to teach me magic, like wizardry would be great. That's
Yeah,
for the other character.
I think that's Alan Moore's next online course.
I was going to
Oh,
say,
yeah.
is that what somebody
Yeah.
called Alan Moore?
Masterclass.
Yeah.
So what do we think? We got we're close. Got 5 minutes left. Daylight savings minutes left. What?
Yeah.
You can't avoid mistakes, so I think what we're all saying is go out and make them.
Yeah.
What's
Artistically,
gonna
for
happen?
sure. Yeah. The one, if I could offer, not that anyone's watching is gonna like, I don't know who's gonna see this, but anyone who wants to get in this business and become a professional artist, even if it's not comics, if it's animation or if it's anything where you're a freelancer, talk to an accountant early
Yeah.
on and get a plan. Like I mean, I know I was terrible about it when I was younger. I personally know a lot of guys who got a big royalty check and then spent it and then owed money and were under the gun for a long time. So I just think that that's I know one guy who got he was doing some stuff at Image and he got a huge check and then he bought like a $12,000 massage chair. And I get it. A massage chair is an amazing thing, but that was that he did not plan ahead and had to pay a price later.
Oh. And yeah, so networking is another way to find a good accountant too.
Yeah.
That's how I found
Right.
mine. Steve, what about you? You got any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I think we've kind of covered it. I guess it's like, right, make mistake. I mean, I think hopefully you're always making them. So it's like, I go back to the thing of trying to do any of this stuff. You need that weird mixture of like delusional optimism and confidence mixed with a really realistic assessment of kind of like where you are, what you need to work on. And what you need to work on might be artistic. It might be in terms of making friends and networks. It might be, with your money and accounting or any of that kind of stuff. It's like, it's a strange thing to sort of try to do something that most everyone will advise you to not do. And we've definitely all met people that have taken the delusional thing too far. And so they're just completely crazy or clueless.
I was thinking about him this week.
I mean, these guys all there was a time when we were at WonderCon when it was still in Oakland when a man came up to me and talked about how he'd drawn thousands of over 1,000 Batman pages trying to break in, and I was like, well, geez, I mean, no matter what, at least you must have gotten so good in just drawing 1,000 pages. And then he was like, well, would you like to see them? And I've been talking to this guy for about 15 minutes, and he had both hands clearly visible with I think he had a cane or something, and kind of, in my memory, he had kind of a cape.
It was a gigantic trench coat.
But there did not seem to be any place on his person that he could have been holding this portfolio with thousands of Batman
And
pages.
no iPhones.
And then he just slowly reached into his back pocket and started taking out these napkins. And he just started slowly unfolding the napkins. And he just drawn all this artwork on napkins that you would get like at a Denny's or a In-N-Out. And then everyone else, Jeff and Scott and all of my friends, they all backed away from me and just left me sitting there. It's like, okay, Steve's got a crazy one. So, that delusion can go too far.
Right. So you are saying the guy at some point needed to self-assess a little bit.
Yeah. Or and find out about Bristol board.
Well, and also I think Steve's the lesson Steve really learned that day is to spot the guy who's gonna have a pocket full of napkins and not be in the line of fire.
I made mistakes too. Yeah.
yeah.
But that is part of the whole setup too, is even if it's not the napkins, I've seen in my day plenty enough kids walking up with portfolios, this and that they want to show you. And then either the portfolio is a total mishmash of, some things are finished, some things aren't finished, or whatever it is going on, or they put their oldest work first, not their newest work. All these different things. I'm like, oh, you're trying everybody's patience with this portfolio. Oh, you drew 3 pages, but you'd like 16 covers. Like all those kind of things are like, no, show them you could draw a story. If you're breaking into comics, you need to draw the story.
Yeah.
Unless, sure, if you're the next Alex Ross, yes, you might just get a cover gig.
Well, I do think that one of the things that, mistakes that you can fix, right, that you can really work on right away is if you're going to send any kind of sample in or you're going to do any kind of work, be very specific about what job you're trying to get. Like if you want to be a penciler, don't show me just covers, right? Don't show
Right.
me fully painted covers. Like that's not what the penciler does, you know. Pick the job that you want, study people who have done it, and then present that kind of work.
That's good because I've often seen, we've all talked to people that were like, look, I just want to do this. I'll do anything type thing. And you don't realize like, hey, that's actually not helpful to any, like, editor, say if it's in comics, it's editors, or if it's in animation, it's produced, people are looking to hire people that can do the job. And so if you want to pencil, then put it penciling samples. If you want to ink, if you want to color, whatever it is you want to do, but you got to, just like dress for the job you want, you got to train for the specific job that you're looking to do and try to get good at those specific skills.
Yeah. And if you're going for an animation job, like if you're going on Phineas and Ferb, don't show Batman stuff. If you're going on Batman, don't show Phineas and Ferb stuff, or at least show that you can work in a style similar to that show.
Yeah. Yep.
Scott, do you have any parting thoughts? Or
just some of those other things. I did that mistake in the beginning where an editor asked me, what I was going to show, and what kind of job I was looking for, whatever. And because of the Kubert School, I had penciling samples, I had inking samples, I had coloring samples, I had all those things. So I was like, I can show you samples of anything you want. I could do all these different jobs. And she stopped me right away, and she's like, nope, pick one.
Yeah.
So there's that thing, but at the same time, then it's like, well, then, dust yourself off. If you need to apologize for a mistake you made, you apologize for the mistake. And then you go forward with either the advice or what you've learned from the mistake. Don't sit on it. Don't wallow on it. Don't, give yourself all sorts of extra headaches over it. Too many things in this industry move around fast. Your mistakes, your wins, your losses, all these things really move around really quickly. So you make a mistake, say, whoops, sorry, my bad, dust off, look at the mistake, do your best to fix it, and do it again. Get up, try again, because you're going to get a million no's.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because kind of to your point, Scott, too, like, I mean, artistically, your job is sort of professional problem solver, and that's what people are looking for, too. They've got a problem. Like, we need someone talented to do this book or to work on this cartoon or do stuff. And so that example you just said, it's like, oh, well, I've got 5 different, I could show you anything. What do you want to see? In my mind, her brain immediately goes like, you're here to solve my problem. I don't want to have to decide from your.
Yeah.
Do I think your penciling is better than your inking is better than your coloring is better than your, like you tell me what you want and I'll let you know how close you are to being able to solve. But, luckily, like I said, I had the benefit of How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way and Jeff as a friend and different stuff to kind of know exactly how to put together samples. So I remember, I think at my first show where I did end up getting work, I remember showing it to Bob Schreck from Dark Horse at the time, who was looking at samples, and Neil Posner from DC, who was looking at samples. And I remember Bob Schreck saying, like, you're 80% there. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, I'm not going to hire you today, but you're doing well. You're on the right path, and you're about 80% of the way there. Now, I did end up getting work from Marvel at that show, but I could also, Dark Horse had less books. In some ways, they had to have a higher standard to hire someone. And I also didn't have anything that was Dark Horse related. It was Marvel and DC related too.
Yeah.
But so.
That might have been your 20% right there.
Yeah.
Right.
Guys, we're getting to the end here.
All right.
Anybody got anything to say before we sign off for another week?
I guess we'll just see you guys next week. We
I'm gonna set an alarm next week.
Yeah. And we're gonna start announcing a little bit earlier when we figure out what we're gonna be talking about as we work out technical difficulties, as you still have some today. And this is fun. We're glad people are watching it.
And hopefully I'll be in America next week, so I'll be on Jeff and Scott's time at least.
Oh, yeah. And get Scott's book, Patra. That's a great cover.
It is a sweet cover.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, guys.